Have you ever been standing in line somewhere, coffee shop, bank, airport security, and watched someone absolutely lose it over something small, like a slow cashier or a missing lid, and then noticed the opposite person nearby? The one who just exhales, checks their phone, maybe smiles a little, as if their internal weather report says mild and stable, no storms coming. And you wonder, how is that possible? Are they secretly repressing rage? Are they emotionally numb? Or did they just unlock some kind of psychological cheat code the rest of us missed? Most people assume that rarely getting angry means you're passive, disconnected, or maybe even fake calm. Like you're bottling things up until one day you explode over something ridiculous, like a broken remote control. But the psychology behind people who rarely get angry is actually much stranger, deeper, and more interesting than that. And if you've ever been told you're too calm, or if you've admired someone who never seems to snap, there's a lot going on under the hood that's worth understanding. Let me show you what's really happening in the minds of people who don't get angry easily, because it's not about having fewer emotions. It's about how their brains interpret threat, meaning, and control. First, let's talk about something uncomfortable. Anger feels powerful. It gives you energy. It sharpens your focus. It makes your body feel ready for action. From an evolutionary standpoint, anger is a brilliant invention. It exists to mobilize you when something important is being violated. Your boundaries, your safety, your sense of fairness. So when someone rarely gets angry, it's not because their brain forgot how to do its job. It's because their brain is running a different cost-benefit analysis in real time. Imagine two people stuck in traffic. Same delay, same heat, same clock ticking. One person's heart rate spikes. Jaw tightens. Thoughts spiral into, "This is ridiculous. People are incompetent. This always happens to me." The other person feels the irritation flicker, notices it, and then it fades. Not because they're suppressing it, but because their brain quickly decides, "This isn't worth my energy." That decision happens so fast it feels automatic, but it's learned. People who rarely get angry tend to have a very specific relationship with control. Not the loud, dominating kind, the quiet, internal kind. Somewhere along the way, often through experience rather than intention, they learned a powerful distinction. What is unpleasant versus what is personally threatening. Anger thrives on perceived threat. Not just physical threat, but ego threat, respect threat, identity threat. When something feels like an attack on who you are or how the world should treat you, anger shows up like a guard dog. But for people who stay calm, many situations simply don't cross that threshold. A late reply isn't disrespect, it's information. A rude comment isn't an attack, it's a reflection. A mistake isn't a catastrophe, it's friction. Their brains don't escalate neutral or mildly negative events into personal violations. And that alone changes everything. Neuroscience backs this up in a fascinating way. The amygdala, the brain's threat detector, doesn't just react to danger. It reacts to interpretation. Two brains can see the same stimulus and fire completely differently depending on learned meaning. People who rarely get angry tend to have stronger regulatory pathways between the emotional centers of the brain and the prefrontal cortex, the area involved in perspective, prediction, and inhibition. In simpler terms, their pause button is well trained. But here's the part most people miss. That pause didn't come from being told to calm down. It came from watching what anger actually costs. Many people who rarely get angry grew up around intense emotion, volatile households, unpredictable reactions, adults whose moods set the temperature of the room. And as a child, you learn quickly that anger is loud, contagious, and expensive. It burns energy. It burns relationships. Sometimes it burns safety. So instead of mirroring that anger, some people develop an alternative survival strategy, emotional conservation. They become observers before reactors. They read tone. They track patterns. They learn to zoom out instinctively because zooming in was dangerous. That doesn't make them weak. It makes them highly adaptive. There's also a quieter group of calm people who learned this through loss rather than chaos. People who experienced something that permanently re-ranked their priorities. Illness, grief, a sudden ending. When you've sat in a hospital room or stared at an empty chair that used to be occupied, your brain rewires what counts as a real problem. Traffic jams and rude emails lose their emotional leverage. Anger feels inefficient, almost disrespectful to what you know actually matters. So, when they don't get angry, it's not indifference, it's perspective with weight behind it. Another surprising trait of people who rarely get angry is that they often feel emotions more precisely, not less. They don't lump everything into anger. They can feel disappointment without rage, sadness without blame, frustration without hostility. Many people default to anger because it's simpler. It's socially legible. It gives you a script, but calmer people tolerate emotional complexity. They're willing to sit in uncomfortable, quieter feelings without converting them into fire. That takes emotional literacy and patience. Think about how often anger is used as a shortcut. You feel hurt, but hurt feels vulnerable, so anger steps in like armor. You feel afraid, but fear feels weak, so anger takes the microphone. People who rarely get angry don't need that armor as much, either because they feel safe expressing softer emotions, or because they've learned that anger doesn't actually protect them the way it promises. There's also something subtly philosophical going on. Many calm people operate with an internal assumption that other people are not fully in control of themselves, not in a condescending way, in a compassionate, almost anthropological way. They see behavior as output, not intention. When someone snaps, they see stress, not malice. When someone disappoints them, they see limitation, not betrayal. This doesn't mean they excuse bad behavior. It means they don't personalize it. Personalization is gasoline for anger. When everything feels like it's about you, anger has endless fuel. When you realize how little of it actually is, the fire struggles to start. Of course, this comes with a shadow side. People who rarely get angry sometimes delay boundaries too long. They can tolerate more than they should. They might rationalize discomfort instead of addressing it. Their calm can be misread as consent, and sometimes it takes a lot for them to realize they're hurt because they're so good at staying regulated. But here's the important part. When they do get angry, it's usually clean, focused, brief. It's not explosive, it's decisive. Because it's not fueled by accumulated resentment or constant irritation. It's fueled by clarity. Anger in its healthiest form isn't noise. It's a signal. And people who rarely get angry are often very selective about when they let that signal through. There's a metaphor I love for this. Think of emotional energy like money. Some people spend it impulsively. Every inconvenience gets a withdrawal. Every slight triggers a purchase. They're emotionally broke by the end of the day and don't know why. People who rarely get angry are budgeters. They ask, often unconsciously, is this worth the cost? And most of the time, the answer is no. That doesn't mean they're above emotion. It means they respect it. If you're listening to this and realizing, that sounds like me, you might also recognize a familiar frustration. People telling you that you should be angrier, that you're letting things slide, that you're too forgiving, too calm, as if emotional intensity is proof of self-respect. But self-respect isn't measured in volume. It's measured in agency, in knowing when to engage and when to conserve. And if you're on the other side of this, someone who gets angry quickly and wishes they didn't, here's the hopeful part. The calm you see in others isn't a personality lottery. It's a pattern, a nervous system skill, a way of interpreting the world that can be practiced, slowly, imperfectly, without becoming passive or numb. It starts with noticing what your anger is actually protecting, not judging it, not suppressing it, just getting curious. Is it protecting your time, your dignity, your sense of being seen? When you understand that, you gain options. And options are the opposite of reactivity. People who rarely get angry aren't saints. They're not enlightened monks floating above human messiness. They're people who learned, consciously or not, that peace is not the absence of conflict. It's the absence of unnecessary conflict. And that distinction changes how you move through the world. So the next time you see someone stay calm in a situation that would normally ignite you, don't assume they're disconnected. They might just be deeply connected to what matters to them. And the next time you don't get angry when others expect you to, maybe pause before questioning yourself. Your nervous system might be doing exactly what it learned to do: protect your energy, your clarity, and your inner weather. If this resonated, I'd love to hear what part of it felt familiar to you. Or maybe you're noticing this trait in someone close to you for the first time. Drop a thought in the comments or just sit with it for a moment. And if you want to keep exploring the strange, quiet patterns that shape how your mind works, you know where to find me.